In this episode, we are going to be reviewing Goodbye Again from 1961. This starred Ingrid Bergman, Yves Montand, and Anthony Perkins, and it was directed by Anatole Litvak. It was written by Samuel A. Taylor, and my guest and I are going to be talking about why this film may be so widely unknown and why it's so underrated in our view. So stick around. Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a movie podcast where I explore films from all over the world and talk about how those stories were told. I want to welcome back Janae Rachel Ballo, who is a writer and director of a web series called Manage, which had a pilot episode shot and is in development. And she also just shot a short film called Contract Player. And she wrote a script on one of the leads of this film today, Anthony Perkins, which I'm excited to hear more about down the road. Janae, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I don't know anybody who knows this movie, Goodbye Again. And, you know, it's a crime to me that it's so underrated. I mean, not even underrated, like widely unknown. And you know, at the time didn't do well at all. Apparently it did well in Europe, and you know, takes place in Paris, but
it did well in Europe, but it's a forgotten gem.
Yeah, unfortunately. So when did you first see how did you first see it, and what was your initial impression?
Well, I think that Savannah Ballo, my lovely sister, touched upon this. She didn't touch on it. She spilled it. Yeah, I was watching a lot of Anthony Perkins movies for just like, that's when I was like in the moment. I was 14 or so, or maybe even 13. But I was in the moment of really trying to get a grasp for, okay, I gotta like read up on this guy. I gotta know as much as possible. And as Savannah said in one of your episodes, she's like, she had like somebody in Germany, like, you know, sending over movies and interviews and all this different stuff, because I couldn't find Goodbye Again anywhere. I saw it on IMDb. I saw that's a movie. Okay, what is that movie? You know, it's like, oh, that sounds interesting. I need to see it though. I need to see it. All right, it's one of his movies. And I messaged this girl in Germany and I said, do you by any chance have this? She's like, I have everything. What do you need? And I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's, you know, bring it on over here in Beverly Hills. It's interesting to think back on, but I watched it with Savannah and I was like, she was really surprised. I was sobbing at the end of the movie. Yeah. I was like, how can Ingrid Bergman do that to Tony Perkins?
Yeah.
And I'm not much of a crier. I'm still not much of a crier when it comes to movies. But that one, like Savannah was like, is everything okay? I know.
Yeah.
You don't understand. He loves her. And and then she did break it to me in a really great way that she was like, he was infatuated with her, which we'll talk about that later. And I went, what? Like, that's not true. Like, you can't say that. And so it was, that was my introduction to Goodbye Again.
Just before jumping into the film, are you a classic Hollywood fan in general? Like this period of, you know, mid 30s to the late 60s? Yeah, the poster of Katharine Hepburn says it all.
Yeah, it kind of does. And you got Cary Grant. But yeah, I mean, I do. I like the 1950s. I like the 1960s. I like that era of old Hollywood because it's very hard to explain. It's just a feeling and a comfort. It's very comforting. And I know that, you know, the stuff back then wasn't all, you know, sunshine and it wasn't all happy-go-lucky as it presented itself to be. But it is very comforting to see how different they moved, as opposed to, you know, not actors today or movies today, but just people in general. While growing up, I would see like, I would find myself kind of like slumping over, and then I would see like, oh, this actress in front of me on the screen, she kind of has this posture
Yeah.
that's graceful.
Right.
And then you got like Betty Davis, who's just like, talking about Joan Crawford in an interview, saying, "I won't piss on her even if she's on fire." It's like, whoa, these are like really strong,
Oh
graceful
yeah.
women
Yeah.
that have grit and grace.
Yeah,
And
I
to
agree.
find that balance is very, that's something I think I already was searching for. And it just so happened to come in the form of 1950s and movies and that cinema, that period. And then, musicals as well. I love watching Singing in the Rain, and I remember tap dancing when I first watched Singing in the Rain. I remember tap dancing and just dancing in my own room for 2 weeks straight with a VHS tape, and I just try to get each number down. And after the 2 weeks were up, my friend calls me and he says, "Do you want to meet Debbie Reynolds?" And I went, "Wow,
Oh
that's
wow.
like popping out of the screen."
Oh my
And
God.
yes, I do. So yeah, it was, there's many great moments from that era. And it is comforting. The way they spoke too, especially, I can go on and on.
And this is a story that was extremely progressive for 1960. I mean, even now you rarely see a movie where a woman who's significantly older than a man is the love interest. I mean, it's like it's so rare. It's so rare even now to see that. I mean, we're certainly used to younger women being interested in older men. That's like the norm. But this film was really ahead of its time with its, the complexity within this love triangle between Yves Montand, Ingrid Bergman, and Anthony Perkins. I was curious. I mean, what do you think it's, what do you think it's essentially about, this movie?
Love. Yeah, I think it's about love. I mean, if you're gonna, there's many themes I run through this, and but if you're going to really, in my opinion, hit the nail on the head, it's about love.
Mm,
And what is the definition of love really for these characters? Is it attention? Is it the lack of love and the lack of it? I think.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
exactly.
yeah, it really just, it's love and the lack of it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And this film is much less on plot, which I always like films that really revolve around the people and the story goes from there. So just looking at the characters, I mean, what was your impression of what Philip, played by Anthony Perkins, was all about? You said something interesting that your sister had said, well, he's only infatuated with
Hmm.
Ingrid Berg. So I was curious what your
It's not
impression
true.
of him. Yeah.
Um, if I mean my impression, I guess, okay, so I'll give you a little bit of a juicier answer. So 13-year-old me would have said, "Oh, he is the most charming
Yeah.
man around, and he knows how to definitely go out and express his love, and but so happens to be let down and in the worst way." And you know he has such a big heart that unfortunately gets broken. And now I think I would probably say, this is a guy who is infatuated, and he definitely loves what he sees, and he also loves what he hears in his own head. And when it comes to her being this woman that he sees walking down the stairs in his apartment or in his house, and she's very alluring, she's very beautiful to him. She's a little bit of a challenge, but he
Yes.
does like compensate a ton by playing these different roles. He plays as she calls him out. You know, he plays the childlike, the child, a little bit of like this. She says, like you said last night, like he's acting.
Yeah.
And he's acting all these different roles for her to please her, to kind of like stay. He says it himself too, that I don't want to be boring. I mean, he doesn't say that, but he just hopes that he's not going to be boring in
Right.
front. And so I think, excuse me, I think like he is somebody that is interesting to talk about, the character, because it's like, are you definitely are infatuated. You're definitely obsessed. Like 13-year-old me would not have caught on to the fact that when they leave on a date, they're not even on a date, actually. They just meet. They leave, he drives her to work or to an errand or something like that, right? And then the next scene is literally her walking out, and there he is smiling.
Yeah, smiling,
and
yeah.
So it's stuff
he was harassing her. Like, I mean,
yes.
that didn't pop out to me as much when I saw this 11 years back. But I was like, man, he's harassing her, and even like when she finally agrees to go to the symphony with her, and he's like, I'm gonna take you away from Yves Montand, and I'm like, wow.
He's very, very adamant, you know?
Yeah, he's very pushy.
That's an understatement. He's pushy. I mean, I think he's somebody that's definitely, he doesn't have a job. I mean, he has a job, but he doesn't love the job.
Yeah, he doesn't really care about it. It's also, I mean, he's from a like bourgeois, rich family, so he certainly could have, like, there was no consequence to him losing that job. I mean, he had his mother's money, and I think that was why he was sort of innocent and flaky. You get the impression that he was spoiled. He certainly doesn't even really seem 25. Like, he does seem very boyish.
He is, yeah. You know? And it's like, it's this spoiled, a little bit entitled, but, and so rightfully so, she does knock him down a little bit and says, you know, she doesn't, I mean, they're going out in all these very, bougie places when they actually do spark up that love affair. But yeah, he doesn't have a job really that he cares for. And I think he's really just searching for himself and kind of going through the motions, and so happens to find her, and really does love her, and finds it to be a little bit of a, like I said, a challenge. But it does make me question, watching it last night, I'm like, okay, so infatuation, attention, what there's like, because she kind of goes to him for attention, going back to the love and the lack, you know. She's not getting that love from, well, it's like, they're not married, but they, from Roger.
Sort of a boyfriend, but not committed.
Yeah, kind of like, you feel like the commitment's there. I mean, if I may get it wrong here, but it feels like, at least, I guess from Ingrid Bergman's perspective, she believes that she's in a committed relationship. She says that I'm not free for the weekend, and while he says I am free. And then she gets the phone call that, oh, well, I thought we had plans, and he's not doing what he wants.
It's interesting because she accepts the fact that he basically sleeps around. I mean, he's not, there is that one scene where he does lie about where he went, and then you see when she discover, when she's about to go into the shower, and then she catches him in a lie, and you see that she doesn't say anything, but but she knows that he lied about where
him, really, does she?
No, it's interesting because he's totally upfront that as he says, it's just the way he is, and he needs to be with other women, and she just goes along with it. She also mentions with her maid off the top that both her and Yves Montand have been married, so you get the impression that they're both they obviously had been divorced, and so they're just afraid to go through with marriage again, that might fall apart. And so I got the impression he was keeping her at arm's length, mainly out of fear, because when you saw him he was with all these women who are much younger. You know,
he's a player.
He's a total player.
And it's not about fear. It's about, I'm going to keep this one on the back burner.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I mean, the reason I thought maybe he was somewhat afraid was because there was these scenes where he was with those women and he had nothing to say to them. They were like annoying him. He wasn't interested in them in anything other than sex, and yet his relationship with Ingrid Bergman was very close, and they had everything in common. I think that symphony, Brahms, I believe it was called.
Yeah, that's the title of the book. It's an adaptation. It's all made
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they had a lot, and it wasn't as if he was just like tired of her. I mean, he still desired her. I mean, there was one scene where, you know, he just said, "Okay, good night," kissed her goodnight, and she kind of looked in the doorway like, "You're just leaving. You're not going to stay." Or, but then later on, he does, right? So
Well, he's a player, Robert.
yeah,
Of course, he's going to have a relationship like this with her. I mean,
yeah,
he's going to have a
exactly.
relationship to be, like you just said, to say, okay, I'm driving you home. One has an expectation of, oh, you're going to be coming home with me, and we do have this relationship that has history that's gone on for very long. And we don't know if they're married or not, but what you said, like there is a montage showing like it dates back to like them being on dates together and how they see each
Yes,
other.
yeah, that flashback, yeah,
Yeah, flashback. And so you have somebody like Ingrid Bergman that's like, okay, well, this is nice. And then he just gives her a kiss on the cheek and says, bye, and
yeah.
walks away. And she's like, well, I mean, he's just an overall across the board player.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. No,
yeah,
definitely. Definitely.
yeah.
I just wonder sometimes if people are, you know, because I've known men like that. And sometimes I wonder if it's just because they're so afraid of themselves getting hurt. So they have all these, like, I'm not saying that they don't just need to be with so many women or something, that they certainly are players. But I wonder if that it has something to do with fear. I mean, it's sort of, that's why I thought just because he really was like bored of
You mean
everyone.
like fear of rejection in some way? They have to control the narrative.
Yeah, like control, fear of being vulnerable, fear uh, of just, you
Insecurity.
know, insecurity. But at the same time, you're right. I mean, it is like fear of being with one woman, you know, and it's
Mhm.
there's
Or
like
commitment. It could be just as simple as that, fear of
yeah,
commitment. But it's definitely it starts and ends with the person and with
oh, for sure, yeah,
yeah, it's it but and then you got Tony Perkins who comes in, and at some point I did like it too, where she's like, okay, I'm gonna have my own affair. I'm gonna, even though in my
yes,
I
yeah,
really feel like in her head it's like you said, she accepts this relationship for what it is,
yeah,
and she accepts him for who he is, but she's still in it for the long haul.
yeah,
And so I liked how she kind of broke away from that mindset of that mentality, basically, of like, I'm going to have my own affair,
yeah.
and it's going to, that felt good. That felt like, okay, yeah, you go do it, because this guy does not care about you.
Yeah,
And
no,
yeah,
yeah,
he's
for
this
sure.
little puppy dog that's going, hey,
Yeah,
pay attention to me, love me. And she kind of, I think she expected to have fun, but there's a scene, where they have sex, and afterwards she looks just so
yeah.
stressed. She
Oh
looks,
God, I know that was so uncomfortable. That
yeah,
was so
really uncomfortable.
it was so uncomfortable because you see that like when they meet that she certainly was like amused by him, you know, but there that she, you know, enjoyed hanging out, but there was she didn't really feel anything for him. I mean, I mean, there must have been some kind of attraction because
I think
she
she filled
was
a
with him
void,
for a
maybe. Maybe she filled like a temporary void in the sense that, for if I were to track Ingrid Bergman's, you know, her arc, or just where she begins, and until she meets Tony, and I would think that it's mainly her just settling for less,
yeah,
and she just is sort of in the throes of not. really expecting much from, not getting much from this man that she loves a lot, she's in love with,
Yeah.
but she expects so much out of, but not getting it from him. And then she finds Tony, and then Tony is giving, like I said, all this attention that she does find amusing, does find to be charming, does find to be somebody that is like, it's the first time in a long time. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay, wow, you're gonna say I'm beautiful. And not only that, he is, back to what you said, he's pushy.
Yeah.
He does not have a filter. He
And
does not.
he's also a much younger man. I mean, that
Mhm.
must have, and she admits like it does, like it feels good, like that she is, she tells him that she's 40 and he's 25, and I'm sure that, I'm sure that the fact that Yves Montand not only is cheating, but cheating with all these like women who are probably like 15 or 20 years younger than Ingrid Bergman, that is going to make you feel so wrought and so insecure and so unworthy, like feeling like
Yeah.
God, I guess I'm not good enough, or I'm not desirable enough, or I'm not enough. And it must have felt good to be desired by someone who was, much, and he's a handsome guy, he's much younger.
Very
And
handsome.
but the scene towards the end, I mean, she almost becomes, it's almost like she starts to mother him, she's like, what, why aren't you going to work? And he's, and like she's
Oh yeah.
talking to him like a kid, and then he begins to cry, and she accuses him of acting, and she, even though like he's like, I know you don't love me, but it's almost as if he could have lived with that. It's like he just wanted to be with her so much that, okay, she's not going to love me, but if she at least stays with me, that'll be enough.
And to your point, when she does send him away, when says like, I can't see you anymore because Roger gets jealous.
Yeah.
Finally his ego is just like, okay, I've had enough of this crap. Like, let's get this guy aside, Tony Perkins, move. And then she goes, oh, you really do, you do care. And so she calls him up and says, hey, hey, you cannot come, you cannot see me again. And
Yeah.
she repeats herself, you promise you're not going to come see me, you promise you're not going to come see me.
Yeah.
If I called my boyfriend up and when I was like, you promise you won't come, you promise,
Yeah.
promise, there's something happening there where I'm going to need to make sure you're not going to come, because I know that you're going to come after me, and not in like the
Exactly
sort of way, but more of like showing up in front of her front door and just smiling and going,
I know.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to believe that this is the same guy who played Norman Bates just like the year before, because
yeah.
he's so great as this like charming, boyish, like he's so in love. Like even after he, sleeps with her, he's like driving around Paris, like he's so, like he was making me laugh.
Yeah, he's counting down the minutes.
Yeah, to seeing her.
And it's all very it's all just all about love, and how he says too, like he talks to her over at a cafe. He's just like, it's not enough to love, one must be loved. And I do agree
exactly.
with that. And she does, kind of go like, how do you even think of love in that way at your age?
Well, he has great insight, even though he's incredibly like boyish and naive and innocent, and came from a very spoiled upbringing where he probably didn't see certain realities that other kids or people his age had seen. He certainly, like, he was able to like just look at her and see so much early on that she was unhappy, that
Robert, it's just childhood trauma. I mean, he's like it's just that's the great insight. That's where it comes from. He's a rich little boy, the mother neglects him, and so he grew up. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I thought that might be the case, but then I just thought, I don't know. I there was that one scene where the mother later on is like asking Ingrid Bergman about it, and she doesn't seem to even want to talk about it with her. But I just thought that he just loved her. I just thought he was, he was in love. I mean, some people just very quickly fall very, very hard. I didn't think it was anything other than some kind of like void from a mother or
No, I didn't. I didn't
yeah,
get that at all. I was just, being
yeah.
the sarcastic.
No,
Yeah.
not but I wonder if perhaps that is like when you had mentioned the infatuation, your sister had mentioned, like, do you think that's what she was referring to, that it had something to do with his
I
mother? I'm not sure. I wonder if
no,
audiences would think that.
I don't think she thought that deep into it at the time. But I think she has a little bit less of a twisted mind as me. But no, she saw him, saw that, like, he was one to pine over her and really, really just be so, as you said, boyish and smiling and just so happy to see her and be like, say, he says, "I love you" in two different languages or one different language.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
Norwegian, or he said he could
there's,
say it in like 15 languages or
and
something.
he says it,
Yeah,
and he says it again, and then she walks away. And he goes, and he says it again, and he's not
yeah.
going to let her to slide.
Oh
But
wow.
so that was like the third meeting. This guy has, I think Savannah, she knew just right off the bat. I mean, that's what Savannah did, and that's what she always does. Back then, I was just like, I don't think it's part of naivety. For my side, I was always just watching something, and Savannah would be able to go, "It's this," and I would go, "Whoa, wait, hold on." I had a totally different perspective on that. That is just not that it's like subjective and she came in with her opinion and made it black or white, but she was able to really hone in on what the story was about for
Well, I
each.
think that's what's great about a movie like this. I think when you offer audiences possibilities as opposed to like a static meaning. I
Mhm.
mean, you can justify what your sister saw and what you would, things that you and I
Yeah,
are
I can
seeing.
debate her on it. I can
Yeah,
say, no,
exactly.
I feel this and my feelings are
Yeah,
valid.
because
And
they're not exactly, because the director and the writers, they weren't giving like a black and white meaning to everything where it was so clear or so obvious. Like it was subjective, and care, as you said, it was, there's people need love, and because they also had lack of love, so they're not just saying what they feel all the time. They're not like Ingrid Bergman is not just spelling everything out in dialogue about why she can't um, confront Yves Montand with the fact that she's not happy with him. Like she can't do it, and the audience can come up with their own reasons. Is it because of her first marriage falling apart? Is it because she's afraid to lose him, so she's accepting just these crumbs that he's giving her? I mean, it's
if you
open
want to
ended.
with it, subconsciously we do this with movies all the time. We project, and consciously as well. We project out onto, like, well, she doesn't want to confront him because she's afraid of confrontation, when really that's the person's issue and not exactly the character's.
Yeah,
But that's when you have
yeah.
a good movie on your hands, and that it is subjective and one that is able to translate to anybody really in the moment that you're immersed.
Yeah, exactly. And those are my favorite kind of films. But just jumping back on Yves Montand, I know that we talked about this last night, because it's such from his point of view, it's such a double standard, because he wants her to accept that he can have these affairs, but if she's having it, he's like, no, all right, let's get married. It's like he's got to shut it down.
Yep. No.
Talk about like hypocrisy. I mean, I did think that he loved her and he needed her, but it had to be on his terms. And even
Oh
though
yeah.
even
It's
though he marries her, I love the end is so great, because again he cancels seeing her, and the audience is left wondering. He's just going back to,
his old
it's
life.
like, okay, I'll give her this, but I'll give
Mhm.
her the marriage, but that doesn't mean that he can't. From his point of view, he's gonna keep doing what he's doing. That's what I thought. I didn't think that.
Yeah. I mean, the 13-year-old me had no idea what this movie was really about. Um, and now me, I'm like thinking, what Robert's saying constitutes what a pattern is, and how a
Exactly.
pattern
Yeah.
is not changing.
Yeah.
And that guy, he's not going to change. He's still going to, he's going to say, I'll get married to you to give that hope. And
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
false hope that can be so overwhelming and can help and to make her stay. And because, yeah, like that's why I felt so good of like, yeah, you have that affair. It's not even an affair. Like, it's not like, hold on, that got in my head because this guy said so.
Yeah.
But you know, she was able to have her own release and her own time, and she's working, and she believes that she's old, and she believes she's somebody just to be treated like trash in a way, and just, you know, and it's fine. And she makes justifications for him constantly,
Oh
and
yeah,
just
always
all the time.
lying to herself, you
Yeah,
know.
and defending him, and you know, lying to herself. I mean, this is a woman that obviously needs to start to be honest with herself, and you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
gosh, it's no wonder they needed Tony Perkins for the comedic relief. It could have been heavy.
It
But
you know, yeah, it really is. And I think it's true. I mean, she, you know, age is certainly a part of this. And again, another double standard was we see Yves Montand publicly with these other women. I don't see anyone batting an eye at the fact that he was clearly 20
no,
years older. But yet when he was out with her and he runs into his boss, and you see the way they're looking at
yeah,
him, like that there's an obvious age difference. You know, you hear them whispering, oh, how old is she? And I think, you know, at the end when she's screaming out to him, I'm old, as she tells him, she breaks it off. I really think like that's part of the reason why she was saying you're acting. It's almost like she didn't believe. This is just what I thought, that she didn't really believe he loved her. And I think she didn't think it was possible because of his
no,
age.
yeah.
That
I think
you know,
because of age, you're right. I agree with you. You know, because of age, and also because of just who she is, and you know, she doesn't really think much of herself in all areas.
yeah, yeah,
Or she would say, "Hey, I'm leaving. Like this is not acceptable." You know,
right, right.
me
Which was
over.
interesting because she was a very successful designer, right? Like,
Mhm, yeah,
but
yeah. And she has
just
like
with her relationship, she
very wealthy
unfortunately,
friends coming
yeah,
back with her and saying, "Will you help me out?" And yeah, so she's a very successful woman. It's just that she's behind on her personal life.
yeah,
You're talking about double standards. I've heard a ton of times that, you know, love doesn't have a number. It doesn't have an age, and it doesn't really matter. And I think, you know, that does there's definite truth in that, so long as you have Roger, who's he's acting like a child, but yet he's about what, in his late 40s or so, maybe early 50s.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you have
I think they're implying that he's roughly her age, so he's like
yeah,
40.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I kind of got. And then you have Tony Perkins, that he definitely like changes it up on, you know, what his age can be. He could be a little bit older at times, he could be a little
yeah,
bit, you know, younger, with how you said insightful,
yeah.
um, and knowing what he wants. He's really the one that, out of all three of them, this triangle, that he does know what he wants, even
Yeah,
though it might be obsession or infatuation. He does know what he wants.
extremely relatable in so many ways, relationships, age. I just think it's such a great, rich, full. I think it's totally, completely underrated. I mean, hopefully, like Criterion or Kino Lorber or Indicator, someone will restore it and put it out because it certainly deserves an audience, and it's such it's universal. I mean, I honestly think it's a masterpiece. I think it's a great, a
And yeah,
really, really, really great film. Well, Jade, thanks again for coming on and talking about this underrated masterpiece. And where's the best place for people to follow what you're working on? Is it on Instagram?
that's on Instagram. Yeah, at Janae _Ballo.
Janae_Bal. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I'll leave the links where you can follow Janae below. Again, the web series she's working on, short film, and down the road, Anthony Perkins biopic, which I'm excited to hear about. So any Anthony Perkins fans out there, and I know there are many, I'm sure are jumping at the bit for that one. So
yeah,
okay, great.
I'm gonna be back. We're gonna find another movie to talk about.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. If you are currently listening to this now on the audio version of the podcast and you've run out of episodes to listen to on there, head over to the YouTube channel where there are a lot more options. Every single episode I've ever recorded is on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies. I am also on Patreon. For those of you who don't know what Patreon is, it is an exclusive membership program where you pay a monthly fee, just a few bucks a month, for all kinds of bonus content that you vote on, that I put out every single month, all sorts of different options that are related to film noir and all kinds of different movies. Head over to patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Also, please comment, give us a like, give me a like on this video as well. It really helps a lot in order to attract more viewers over to my channel. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo. You will see it floating above my head right here to your top left in just a second. Just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release a new video or when I am live on YouTube. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.